When would your business be ready to franchise? Well, that's the question that I hope we'll answer during the course of this webinar. My name is Clive Smith from Franchise Focus. We're a small team of franchise practitioners that work with businesses of all types and sizes that are keen to franchise or have already started their franchising journey. We have spent our entire careers working for franchise companies, and our focus, quite simply, is on offering practical guidance and support that will help businesses to successfully franchise what they do. Okay, so I'm going to start by doing some scene setting. The first point I'd really like to make is that franchising is now big business. It's a very well established method of operation, particularly in the service sector, and this particular slide shows just a few of the high profile businesses that are franchised. Now, we're all familiar with McDonald's and other fast food operators such as Subway and Domino's. But franchising works well for many other services such as cleaning, health and fitness, retail, home improvements, domiciliary care. In fact, really there are very few service sectors that don't lend themselves well to franchising. Here are some stats that help give you an idea of the scale of franchising in the UK. So according to the last survey conducted in 2018 by NatWest and the British Franchise Association, there are about 940 franchise businesses, which are represented by 48,600 franchised units that collectively employ 710,000 people and generate 17.2 billion of turnover. So really the point there is that franchising is making a very big contribution to the UK economy, and perhaps also if you're the owner of a business or involved in a business that's looking to franchise, perhaps you can see that you would be in very good company if you did decide to franchise what you're doing. Now, a definition of franchising may seem a bit stuffy, but I'm showing this because I think this one in particular helps explain very well what it takes to franchise a business. You'll see I've highlighted some key words. So franchising is where the owner of a successful business, the franchisor, licenses the use of its operating systems, brand and other intellectual property to enable another party, the franchisee, to set up and operate an identical business elsewhere. The franchisor provides initial training and gives ongoing support to the franchisee. In return, the franchisee pays the owner an initial fee and an ongoing management service fee. So that's what it's all about. But let's examine this in a little bit more detail. A franchise system is based on the duplication of success. The owner of a successful business, one that's established, it's profitable, invites people with the ambition to be self-employed to fulfill that ambition by replicating what it does. Now, in a way, franchising is a bit like leasing. Underpinning a franchise are a number of key assets owned by the business that it leases for a period of time, perhaps 5 or 10 years, to a franchisee, so that franchisee can operate an exact but independent replica of the business in another area. And the assets that are being leased comprise the brand name and identity of the business, its know-how and methodologies, the systems that make the business work, the standards that it has set, and involves the use of support that the business makes available to assist franchisees in running their business. And in addition to that, a franchise system will involve a process to monitor compliance. These processes will check that the assets that are being leased are being used properly and are therefore protected. So we need to know, are the franchisees applying their know-how correctly? Are they using the systems properly, adhering to the standards and making good use of the support? So just to add some further clarification. In a franchise, the typical responsibilities in a business are divided up so that, as the franchisor, you would deal with the structural issues and the franchisee would deal with the service delivery. You own and provide the tools that enable the franchisee to operate their business. This is the brand and the training, the systems and the marketing materials. Franchisees will be responsible for delivering the service, acquiring the necessary assets, premises, vans and equipment, and paying all of the associated operating costs, so staff, stock materials, insurances, telecoms, promotional activity. The day-to-day operation of the franchise is the sole responsibility of the franchisee. Using the tools you provide and observing the protocols you set, they will make the decisions and take the actions that will aim to maximize their business's performance and accordingly your brand's reputation. So hopefully, having made clear how a franchise works, let's now consider what determines if and when a business is ready to franchise, or whether it actually could be franchised at all. Now, we regularly speak to business owners that are keen to understand whether franchising is a suitable method for expansion. And the answer to that question will depend on a number of issues, but there are 7 fundamental requirements. Let's consider each of these in turn. Well, firstly and foremost, the business must be proven. What does that mean? Well, it does mean that the business should not just be a startup or just an idea, although actually designing a business with franchising in mind from the outset can be quite an advantage. But to convince someone to buy your franchise, you will need to be able to demonstrate that you have experience and knowledge, and that crucially your business model is established, it's legitimate and it's structured. You need to show you have devised operational, administrative and marketing methods that have enabled the business to build a good market position and to make money. For most businesses, it may take 3 years to get to a point at which it could claim to be proven, but it varies a lot depending upon the market, the prevailing trading conditions, and the strength of the business's proposition. The second important requirement is about duplication. Can you teach someone else to run the business as you do within a reasonable timescale? Now, if the mechanics of your business are so complex that it would require a franchisee with specialist skills, or would take a good few months for them to achieve a satisfactory level of competence, then franchising might not work. Most franchise businesses create a training program that can be delivered within no more than 4 weeks. In some cases, a few days may be enough. It really does depend on the nature of the business. What's important is that your training course allows a franchisee to clearly understand how to effectively execute all of the responsibilities involved in running the business. The technical skills, customer service disciplines, how to process payments, health and safety procedures, purchasing, inventory control, managing staff, sales, marketing and finance. All aspects must be covered by the training. Successful duplication of a business may also be influenced by any barriers to entry, such as the cost of setting the business up. For example, it may be that the upfront investment in assets, buildings and equipment, could be so high that it's impractical to raise the finance necessary to get the business up and running. However, businesses of all sizes are franchised, including those needing substantial premises, such as hotels, and providing the return on investment and profit profile both make sense, raising finance need not be an issue. In fact, banks and other lending institutions love franchising because they are dealing with proven business concepts, so the risk is considerably reduced. Now, another important consideration when it comes to franchising a business is to carefully examine the market in which it operates. Is the pattern of demand stable? Ideally, it should be growing, but most importantly, is it sustainable? People that buy franchises will almost certainly do their research and gather information about market trends even before making an inquiry. They will identify the type of business they want to run, but they will obviously discount those where they feel that future prospects are looking uncertain. So if you're in a market where demand is starting to decline, then franchising is probably not going to be particularly successful for you. Whereas, if you're in a fast growth market and your business is doing well, then it's reasonable to suppose that, if you were to franchise, you'd get a lot of interest. But the key issue is how sustainable the pattern of demand is. For example, if the growth is driven by a current fashion trend or maybe technology that could be quickly superseded, then it's reasonable to suppose that the growth is going to be short-lived. And in the same vein, are you aware of any future changes that would have the potential to undermine the demand for your products or services? This could be of a regulatory, technical or cultural nature. The point here really is that if either of these circumstances apply and you don't have a way of responding to the decline in the market or to the changes that are going to take place, then you really shouldn't be franchising. You can't ask people to invest in a franchise unless you make them very much aware of what these changes or the pattern of demand is going to be like. in which case they're probably not going to be that attracted to the franchise. It's also important to be alert to the position of other players in the market. Could any of these build a position of such dominance that demand for your products or services is going to be fatally damaged? Again, if that's so, then franchising what you do may not be wise. But if the market is growing, or at least stable, and it's likely to stay that way, then you'd be in a good position to franchise what you do. Intellectual property. It is vitally important that the intellectual property that underpins your business is owned and fully protected. We're talking about trademark, patents, copyright, domain name and software. Now, the most notable item of intellectual property is your trademark. This is your trading name and your logo style. And the issue is whether or not you have registered it with the Intellectual Property Office. Under no circumstances should you franchise your business unless or until you have registered your trademark. It's not a difficult process, but you will need to use a trademark lawyer to handle it effectively. It's worth pointing out that if your trading name is too descriptive and not sufficiently distinctive, then you may find that you are unable to register your trading name. And that's an unsatisfactory situation from a franchising perspective because it dilutes the protection your business would have. However, you could slightly mitigate this by separately registering your logo style. Additionally, the ownership of patents must be secure, and you should make sure that you own the copyright of the design of your marketing materials, particularly your website. And what about software that's integral to how your business functions? Ideally, you will have programs that you've developed yourself, but this is expensive and it's very common now for businesses to use industry standard programs. And if that's the case with your business, you would need to think carefully about what would happen if the provider of that software was to suffer some sort of difficulty, maybe a security breach or goes out of business even. Are there decent alternatives? You need to have contingencies because providing access to software is certain to be one of the contractual obligations that you will have to your franchisees. So it follows that if there's an interruption to that access, your franchisee is going to be upset and could ultimately bring an expensive claim for damages against you. So you must take steps to ensure that your intellectual property is owned and fully protected. A franchise business should be systematized. It needs clearly defined processes and procedures that a franchisee will adopt to run the business. Remember, franchisees are buying know-how and will expect that you've packaged that know-how into easy-to-use systems. Now, as you may be aware, an anchor document in any franchise business is an operations manual. A document that comprehensively explains and sets out the policies, processes and procedures that the franchisee must use in order to efficiently operate the business from the point at which it opens in the morning to when it closes at night. It's vitally important that sufficient time is taken to prepare this document, making sure that it covers all of the bases and is easy to interpret and follow. Key processes really should be automated using software wherever possible in order to make the working practices highly efficient. And this software should give you the visibility you need over the activities of franchisees and provide an effective method by which franchisees will report back to you. You have to hold them to account and they are expected to report to you on whatever aspects of the business you think are crucial in order to hold them to account for the performance of their business. The success of any business will usually be determined by the sharpness of its competitive edge, those features that set it apart from other players in the market. However, from a franchising viewpoint, there is another key reason why competitive edge is crucial. It's that it binds and commits franchisees. A brand name would be one example of a feature that provides a sharp competitive edge. For McDonald's, their brand name alone provides a massive commercial advantage for its franchisees. But it obviously takes a long time to build a brand name with such high levels of awareness as McDonald's. So, if you're not in that position and you want to franchise, then you need to have something else at your disposal. For example, it could be ownership or exclusive use of a piece of technology. Maybe dynamic software that makes you more efficient. Possibly creative marketing that drives consumer demand more effectively than the other players. Maybe you have an established customer base that the franchisees can take advantage of, or perhaps effective buying power. Features such as this should provide genuine value to a franchisee to the extent that the absence of that feature or features would significantly impair the performance of a franchisee's business. So the ongoing value of a sharp competitive edge will be key to maintaining the loyalty and commitment of franchisees. Profitability. This is perhaps the most obvious requirement. You need to be able to show that the business is profitable. Fact is that if you're not making a decent living from your business, then it's hardly likely someone else will. So the level of profit that a well-run franchise is capable of generating should offer the potential of respectable earnings for the franchise owner. And the earning potential should be realised within a reasonable timescale. If your business has slowly grown organically and it's actually taken you several years to be at a point where you're making a good income, then unless you've identified a method for accelerating the growth, you may find it's difficult to convince a prospective franchisee that your business is financially attractive. Depending on the business, the break-even point will probably need to be reached well within the first 12 months of trading. And the business should provide an attractive return on investment. To be clear, the investment would comprise the franchise fee, purchase of stock and equipment, acquiring and fitting out premises and or vehicles, and working capital. Depending on the type of business, the sum total of the investment made in these items should be recovered from the income the business is capable of generating within no more than a couple of years. Importantly, franchising must be profitable for you, otherwise why would you bother? It's important to carefully calculate the finances to ensure that the fees, initial and ongoing, will permit you to effectively fulfill your obligations to build and manage a network of franchisees and make a good profit. So, to sum up, these are the fundamental requirements for franchising a business. Your business must be proven. You need to demonstrate a track record. It must be one that people could be trained to operate without too much difficulty. The market you operate in must be sustainable, with no significant disruption anticipated. Your intellectual property must be fully owned and protected. You should have defined working methodologies and systems. The business must have some form of competitive edge. And lastly, but quite importantly, it must be profitable. If you can tick each of these 7 boxes, then your business is one that would be suited to franchising. Obviously, there are other considerations that will determine whether you should franchise, but these are the fundamentals. If you would like to find out more about what it would take to franchise your business, then please get in contact. Our discovery meetings would provide a feasibility assessment of your business, examining it against 14 criteria to help you fully understand how it's positioned and what you would need to do to adopt franchising as a development strategy. The meeting is conducted online, takes no more than an hour, and is completely free of charge. And please request a copy of our ebook, How to Franchise. Either drop me an email, clive@franchisefocus.co.uk, or visit our website, www.franchisefocus.co.uk. Thank you for sparing the time to view this webinar. We hope you found it useful.